I'm Renee Cordes with The Deal in Brussels, speaking today with Catriona Hatton of Baker Botts Law Firm. Today's topic, Brexit. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, the UK wants the benefits of the European single market without membership of the EU. How will that work in practice?
Well, that's going to be, I think we all know, a very difficult deal to negotiate. I mean, typically, we don't have too many precedents, but Norway is one where access to the single market depends on compliance with the EU laws and regulations and free movement of people, which is the big issue for the UK.
Right. And now looking ahead to a post-Brexit world, what is the likely impact on regulation?
This is, one that for, I think, anybody is extremely difficult to predict because everything depends on the results of the negotiations, which obviously haven't even started yet. The single market is this area that we now take for granted, free movement of people and products and services. But I've been around in Brussels long enough to remember the big drive in the early 90s to put all this legislation and regulation in place to allow for this, to allow everything from toys or cars and medical devices and banks to move freely within the EU, provide their goods and services. And so there's this huge raft of regulation, which obviously has been implemented in the UK.
And all these areas are going to be affected after the UK leaves the EU.
Potentially, unless, some deal will have to be worked out to give whatever level of access can be negotiated from both for the remaining EU countries to the UK market and vice versa. But whether it's going to be full access as it is now is hard to know.
Right. You mentioned a couple of areas. One key area also is intellectual property. So, for example, what happens with patents and the plans for the Unitary Patent Court in London?
Yeah, so the unified patents in the patent court in London, which was due to take effect next year and was going to be quite a big cost saving really for businesses to allow for patent litigation in one jurisdiction rather than having to go enforce patents in multiple jurisdictions. That is really now in doubt because the UK has been one of the big contributors to that whole sort of debate and the whole evolution of the regulation there, including being the site for one of the patent courts. So it is not clear whether they can go ahead on the timescale that they envisaged, 2017. If it ultimately does go ahead, and the UK exits, then it's without the UK.
Right. And in the area of trademarks as well, a lot of companies have trademarks, EU-registered trademarks. They will do business in the UK and other EU countries. What happens after Britain is out of the EU?
Yes, exactly. Now you get one centrally granted EU trademark, which is valid throughout the EU, including in the UK. Once the UK exits, that EU trademark is not valid in the UK, again, unless there's some type of arrangement or legislation in the UK or recognition of the EU trademark. And we expect that there will need to be some transition arrangements for people who have EU trademarks who are using them currently in the UK. But there will be a need to apply also, in addition to your EU trademark now, to apply to the UK for a UK trademark.
Some more paperwork.
Some more paperwork, some more time, some more cost.
Right. Finally, what about trade? Should companies also be prepared for a whole slew of additional customs and tariffs duties from the UK?
Again, it's hard to envisage a world where we have a European area where there would be tariffs on imports from the UK, but that's the natural consequence of this if there's not a full access to the single market. Another concern on the trade side is that the EU has negotiated all the free trade agreements with non-EU countries, which the UK is not directly party to, but is part of that because it's a member of the EU. There's deals with, I think, over 50 countries, and those will all have to be separately looked at by the UK and bilaterally negotiated now for the UK to benefit from them once they exit.
And any advice, words of wisdom you would have for companies to prepare for all of this?
I think nobody quite knows yet what the outcome's going to be. And obviously a lot will evolve over the next couple of years. But companies need to start planning now, and a bit like, I suppose, like Y2K, no one was quite sure what would happen. Here we know something will happen, we're not quite sure what, but you need to have a plan in place to look at your IP issues, your contracts, and basically what will need to be or could need to be adapted depending on the outcome of the negotiations.
Right. Very good advice. Thank you very much, Catriona.
Thank you, Renee.
Reporting from Brussels, this is Renee Cordes with The Deal.